person that I would like to see take over my end of things. I've mentioned this in passing to Veront, and I actually mentioned it to Brad after he had left, and he was sort of stunned, and sort of said, "Well, why didn't you tell me that?"
Right.
But I think there's a good possibility that he could step in, and I think he's a great music person and a very positive one. I don't think that there'll be as much of a change with either Marion or Bill. Bill, I think they're both more involved with the with Rounder Books at this point.
Right.
And Scott is still interested in Roots, although I think he also has a pull or feels the need to come up with something that sells.
Right.
Which has been elusive for him for a number of years.
Yeah. So
it's hard to say.
Yeah, I understand.
And I'm also wondering about the future of Roots. How in 50 years, what is going to be the Roots music of 50 years from now?
Well, it's interesting that you say that. One of the things I haven't touched on is I've noticed that more and more, we talked about compilations earlier, but in a different context. A whole lot more of Rounder's product in the last few years, I'll say loosely, has been compilations. Part is the 30th anniversary, but compilations of its own stuff. Anthologies of your own material. And I began thinking about that, and at first I'll confess, I was probably mentally critical of it, like, oh, it's lazy or something like that, or it's just a way to, there's a stigma maybe to repackaging for the sake of money or something. But I also started saying to myself, well, Jesus, when you started in 1970, you were putting out stuff from, say, 1935 on. To some degree, to be more charitable, the history is now yours. Or you are the history.
It is, and that's, and thank you on that. But another part of it is the retail situation.
Okay.
And that is that in the past, records would stay in the bins a lot longer.
Okay.
If you take a look at when we got in the business, there was Rebel and County and, and then there were, the Monroes and the Stanleys and the whatever, But older records were in there longer. Now they're in there until the turns stop or slow down, whatever, the store has as their criteria. And then they're pulled out of the store.
Yeah.
Try to find a Rebel Blue Highway in most stores.
Yeah.
Try to find, I guess a lot of stores still have Allison's early stuff, but not that much.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking, about doing a Tom Russell compilation.
Right.
His older records are not in the stores.
Yeah.
So how do you get them into the stores? If you put out the same record, they're not going to take it in.
Yeah.
But if you compile it, have a different cover, it's a way of getting the product back into the stores.
Right.
The McCoury. I mean, none of those early titles are in the stores now. We still sell some. Dell still sells a bunch off the stage, and county sales sell some, and we sell some, but in the regular retail channels, no.
Right.
So if you have this this strong music, and you want to sell it, that's the best way to do it.
Right.
Most of these albums aren't classic, and even if we put out a classic, I consider our first Don Stover our first classic record. I think I probably told you that in the past.
Yeah.
But that isn't enough. If we do a compilation of our two Jim and Jesse records, that could get back in the stores if we just reissued one of them. I mean, what Delmark used to do would be to let a record go out of print for 2 years.
Okay.
And then they just bring it back in and sell Hoodoo Man Blues, another 3,000, and then they let it go out of print again.
Yeah.
Let the orders build up, but that's not likely to happen these days.
Right.
And you'll really anger people.
Right.
So it's something that's dictated by the conditions. If you want to sell that, some great music.
Right.
So it's, I don't think we do it out of just fun, although they are fun. But every time you do a compilation, you're largely taking those cuts that aren't used and put them further into obscurity.
Oh yeah, that's a real bad risk.
But how available are they otherwise?
That's right.
I mean, if you take a look at the county sales newsletter, they don't go and list every McCoury record every time a new one comes out.
And talking about that, you said in the email you didn't know much about this, but Bill did talk to me somewhat about digitizing your older material and adopting the Folkways model of either doing a straight download or doing a personalized disc. Is there support for that within the company?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we were hoping to have it as a January launch with about 20 releases. And something went wrong. There's something in the infrastructure in the computer system that didn't go, and I think they're talking about March now.
Okay.
But we're talking about, the first Frank Wakefield, maybe the Clint Howard and Fred Price, as well as some things that are somewhat more popular that will come out that way.
Okay.
But doing them and then just shipping them to regular retail would be a disaster.
Right. Okay.
As good as the records are.
Yeah.
I mean, not the Wakefield, but the...
Okay. Oh, that'd be a big hit. I think I'm done, or at least played out.
Okay. So maybe what I'll do is I'll look over your notes and see if there were things that... I don't know if you want this or not, but in the universal arrangement...
Yeah. Well,
it's really been a mutually beneficial one.
Yeah, I'm interested in that. How?
That we have a big catalog that is strong in areas that they have not been traditionally. And that it's add-on sales to them. They can go into the Cajun, Zydeco, reggae, bluegrass bins where they don't have anything.
Right.
And sell product. I think there's also a prestige attached to Rounder as a boutique label. We're pretty big for a boutique, but
right.
I think there's a positive value, and this is sort of tooting our own horn, but I think it helps to create legitimacy or increase legitimacy in the same way that a Lost Highway might keep Kim Ritchie on the roster, even though it's not making money.
Okay.
Just so that if the label puts out some schlock, that people won't look at a label as just a commercial venture.
Right.
And I'm not saying that Lost Highway is or any other particular label,
right.
but
Yeah.
I think we have a high music and quality quotient attached to us, or brand or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
Which helps, and I think it's nice for them also to be involved with Grammy recipients.
Oh.
No, it is, and so there are years I think that we've had as many nominations as they have.
Okay.
Or more.
Right.
My voice is definitely tired.
It's a long stretch. What I would like to do, you had talked to me earlier on about, much earlier on, about songs that you felt you had introduced into the bluegrass canon.
Wow.
Things that were becoming parking lot songs, you said in some instances, and others maybe not that popular, but still that got recorded at least once from Elspeth, and some of them got re-recorded. I am interested, to the extent you want to do it. It certainly doesn't have to be today or even next week, even within the week. I mean, over a few weeks or so, I would love whatever you think is your top 20 of that, or as long as you want to go. And I can send you an email. I'd be interested in where you got it from and who first recorded it in bluegrass and who subsequently recorded it and how far you think it's gone.
Yeah.
Let me send you an email and deal with it as you...
Yeah, just as examples, Leaving, which James King did, and is definitely a big parking lot thing, came from Tasty Licks. Well, I didn't bring in the Old Home Place, but that's become a huge parking lot.
I'm thinking of songs from other areas, though, as well, like country songs and folk revival songs. That's really what I have in mind. Songs that you brought into bluegrass that were elsewhere. And even you didn't bring them in, but, when the JMB, I guess, did their Blue Diamond record, they did some interesting stuff on there. They did the old Sonny and Brownie song, or at least that's how I know it. What the hell was it? I don't remember. It was a Sonny and Brownie song through Dave Van Ronk that they put on that record.
Oh, Duncan and Brady.
Yeah, Duncan and Brady, and things of that nature. If there are a fair number of examples or a reasonable number of examples.
Yeah.
I know Deadly told me he got that from just working at Folkways.
Yeah. Yeah, going through the bins.
Yeah. I'll send you an email.
Yeah. It'll be one of those days when I just go into the library and start looking at...
Didn't you bring some David Olney songs into bluegrass, or am I totally off base on that?
Yeah, the Whitsteins and...
the Whitsteins did.
Queen Anne's Lace is one of Bill's hits.
Right.
That was one, and...
Simon and Garfunkel, Bridge Over Troubled Water.
Yeah.
Which,
Whitsteins again. Yeah, Whitsteins and James, Pack Up Your Sorrows to James King.
Okay.
What's that? Rose of My Heart.
Right, Hugh Moffat song, is that?
Yeah, that went both to the Whitsteins and to Third Time Out.
Right, okay.
I'd have to check with Hazel to see how many of those I brought her.
Okay.
But the James Talley Outlaws Again, they're going to make us Outlaws Again. And the Peter Lafarge.
With the Ira Hayes, is it?
Yeah, Ballad of Ira Hayes.
Did Hazel do that?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah, definitely up tempo.
That's really widely recorded, though. You brought that to her from the Lafarge version, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or maybe I might have had the Pat Sky version, but
Okay.
she definitely up-tempoed it, and Only a Hobo, Hazel.
Yeah. Now, did she get that from you, or?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Actually, we might have done that together. We went, trying to think, and we almost did another one. Let's see what else. Tons of folk stuff. There's a lot of Dells. The Lights on the Hill, which I heard somebody else do recently. Got from the Slim Dusty.
Uh-huh. I don't know that, or Slim Dusty.
Pardon?
I don't know that, or Slim Dusty.
Oh, Slim Dusty's a country singer, in quotes, from Australia.
Okay.
So that was I got that from a collector who had mostly 78s, but somehow was wild about Slim Dusty. And,
okay.
Yeah, with Dell there are lots, and James King tons. Bill Grant and Delia Bell. Those are the three.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the three and Hazel that have probably been most effective. We've cut twice. Jack and Lucy from Hugh Moffat.
Okay, yeah.
Jeannie Kendall and Bill Grant and Delia Bell.
Yeah.
There are a lot of other Hugh Moffat things that I pitched, but I haven't always been successful there.
The Jeannie Kendall thing, just off that kind of died on the vine, didn't it? That never.
Well, she never got out there. It got great reviews.
Yeah.
One of our all-time, and she didn't have a band.
Yeah, I don't know how hard they worked it. Randy said nobody wanted to book her.
Yeah. And they also had too high a price.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that was another thing. Part of the factor, and when Randy's better, you might speak to him a bit about venues. That a lot of venues have been hurt. Some by smoking bans, some by other factors, and it's really cut down. When you think particularly about places where blues and Cajun used to be.
Right.
The bluegrass venues seem to have spread, especially with the advent and popularity of the indoor festivals.
Right.
But there don't seem to be as strong a network as there used to be for blues.
Art Meanius was saying somewhere, and I don't remember where offhand. He wasn't saying it to me, but he was saying it to a gathering or online that there's not enough one-shot venues for bluegrass, like clubs and bars. There's not a way for a lot of acts to even build up a touring base by coming in for a night and doing a show and then leaving.
Yeah. No, and that's the same thing. At least Cajun and Zydeco and blues you can dance to.
Yeah, it's better.
Although we went to see Yonder Mountain last week, and they had people dancing to, basically bluegrass.
Right.
So it's just a different audience.
Yeah. What did you think of them? They have a different image than your acts, I'd say.
Yeah. They also. They had about as many people in this rock club as the whole Joe Val Festival gets for theirs with 5 bluegrass names.
Right. Did you like the show? Did you like the band?
I thought that they were much better than their records. And I think they can make much better records. And they don't have a Dudley or a Terry Eldridge as a lead singer.
Yeah.
But that audience doesn't demand it.
Right.
I mean, the number of successful, not that they're rock, but the successful rock groups that don't have a lead singer is staggering.
Yeah.
And, if you're, going for a largely, jam band or rock, I mean, their singing and playing is far better than most of the other jam band type groups that I've seen.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm probably missing something big, but I can fill it in.
Well, we've, counting the timeouts, I think we're right at the 3 hour.
Oh, God. Okay.
It's 12:18 and...
No, we're 2 hours, 15 minutes, 2.25 hours. We started at 9. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, we are. Jesus.
Yeah, I was counting the timeouts.
Oh, yeah.
That we've probably had about 15 minutes of timeouts between the calls.
Right. Well, okay. That's a long stretch, and I'm feeling it. That's why.
Yeah.
I will... You will at some point get a hunk of stuff about Rounder's history and where you are today, and some of which will have comments that you'll grimace about, and other.
Do you want a story from Bill about the guy that Bill used to know who stayed in our house and forged a check and took all of our money that we had at the time?
When was this? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I don't know. Get it
from Bill. Okay.
Danny something Bill mentioned. I mean, it's just, every once in a while we'll get together and, either you'll say something or something will spark. But, and they actually had photos of him cashing the check.
What I have found, that's funny. What I have found, and it's disturbed me a little bit. I made a comment before that I at one point didn't know that I have anything to write about, and I'm willing to confess now. When I started this whole project, I feared that I'd write 50 pages and I wouldn't know what else to say, and that's not proved to be the case at all. I'm probably too verbose. At one point I said, with computers you can do this now. I realized I had written 1,000 words on your Snuffy and Pappy record, and I said, that's ridiculous. I just need to cut that out. But I liked the flavor, and you stayed at Pat Irwin's house, and she was a nice lady, and I don't know, it lent itself to a nice touch, and they had you over for a barbecue. But that as I got into writing more about attitudes toward tradition and all these dissertation-y stuff and how you market a record, there was enough to say. There was enough to say, and a lot of these little vignettes that could go into a more linear chronology or one of the great oral histories of the labels kind of disappear. And I that kind of bothers me. You may grimace at some of the things that I wrote in the latest patch, and that's because I don't feel, a union did form. It formed for reasons, and it formed because people thought you were mean slave drivers, bluntly, and you have to say that because that's how it comes about. But it's not the same as a good story about life over the 35 years.
It just seems like, to me, that's such a minor part. I mean, it's an interesting. To me, it's a sidebar.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's a sidebar because it's your own life. If you're talking about the development of, well, let me put it this way. I
don't even know where you're going with your thesis anymore, because you've covered such an immense amount of ground.
It is, yeah.
I don't even know. I mean, is the thesis directed at the same, in the same way that you originally conceived it?
Well, I think I originally approached you with the idea that I would write more of a linear history of the label per se, and that I abandoned a long time ago, although the label is still a huge part of this thesis. I would define it more now as a way in which, as something that looks at, the second wave of folk revivalism in the 20th century. It's not really second, but the next wave of folk revivalism in the 20th century and beyond, after the folk boom ended. How did it mature into an industry as it receded from, this momentary boom of popular consciousness in 1963 that influenced you and Bill? What did people do with that? How did people take that energy and that moment in time and the types of concerns and musics that arose at that time and make something more lasting out of it in popular culture? And did that make any sense at all?
Sort of.
Okay, fine. Better than I hoped, as I was saying it. What happened to that burst of interest in American vernacularity, American tradition, as represented by music, that came to prominence in 1958, 1965, and how have people turned that into something lasting, and what does it look like today? You say you're uncertain about where I'm going and how that ties together. Let me quote, let me turn off my tape machine. We can start off with whoever told me that Ken Irwin rode his bicycle through the warehouse once on a silly hat day, but nobody will do that anymore. Paul Foley's not going to ride his bicycle through the warehouse. John Morant's not going to wear a fucking silly hat.
I got all the best silly hats anyway.
Okay, go ahead. What thoughts did you have about workplace culture changing? People have, it bothers some people. It doesn't bother other people. Is the bottom line. It's just it's a developmental story. Yeah, a tiny part of one.
Right. I think there are a few things. One, I think that there was a change of personnel in the HR position. In fact, we had only had HR for a few years at that point.
Right.
And
you're talking late 90s?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And that was Karen Keidel.
Uh-huh.
And we also had, at that point, a couple of the people in IS who weren't doing enough IS would have cookouts from time to time, barbecues.
IS, computer people?
Yeah.
Okay.
And everybody would go over, and there were a couple of things like that, but overall, I think that that there's been a change in that department, where it's not, I don't think, just having fun is as important as managing employee performance and.
Right.
And working on administration of benefits and administrating employees. And there's still a little bit of the soft skill side, little things of holiday parties. And last year we had a health fair for the first time where we brought people in and we got flu shots. I don't know if that's going to happen this year.
Right.
Gift cards for employees, and recently, one of our employees who had been around for years and years and years had some serious cancer operation, and she actually went over and cooked dinner for him. I mean, really, above and beyond type things, but it is slightly different from the other. But I think more, and this is more in line with what what we've been talking about offline is that we're a more professional company than we were in the past.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And, where we started as a hobby-like business, the times have changed, and the world that we're living in, our business world, has become much more difficult between all the things we have discussed and haven't discussed. We haven't really gotten into downloading. We have gotten into many of the other areas, but it's not as easy a world. We may have our best year ever this year, but we're looking over our shoulder.
Sure.
We never know when something else is going to come up. If in the past we would know when we put out certain types of records what they were going to sell. I mean, it was much more predictable.
Right.
We knew a lot more of the answers than we do now, and I think as a result we have become more businesslike. And I think that as we've grown in size and professionalism and stature, that we're still the same label, but in some ways we're different.
Right.
And the labels that were around when we started, who have not adjusted, have really. I mean, you're probably friendly with Chris at our Hulu.
Right. Mm-hmm. Sure.
And if you take a look at County, and Rebel's grown to some extent. They've borrowed from some of the things we've done, but if you look at all those other labels, where's Delmark? The people that haven't changed with time, that haven't made improvements, are operating out of their homes, or not too much further along. So while I don't think that that any of the changes about silly hat days or whatever are really a reflection of John or Paul being tyrants, or whatever the word that you used.
I didn't use the word tyrants. I didn't say that.
But it was something that was soulless and
right. Well, I say that's the charge.
Yeah.
That's the charge.
And I don't have as much contact with Paul, but I certainly feel that's really way off the mark with John.
Okay.
And he's the one who's on my floor, and he's involved in our A&R meetings, and he's the one that I go to when I have questions about artists and concerns. And I've had some disagreements with him, and when he's made a mistake, he's acknowledged them and has been very straightforward.
Right.
And I feel that he's a very good leader, and someone who's in a difficult situation, trying to balance the needs of the company and three somewhat esoteric and sometimes erratic owners.
Okay.
And that's not an easy balancing act.
Right.
And I think he's really quite exceptional.
Okay.
I see Paul in label meetings primarily, and I know that my experiences are not the same as a typical employee, just by the nature of of my being an owner.
Right. Uh-huh.
So I don't feel I can speak as well about that, but I certainly don't feel that that the company or that is as I don't think that's a really good. The statement that was made is really a good reflection, certainly of John, and I don't feel it is of Paul. I think it's likely that he could benefit from some courses or reading in dealing with personnel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just being more user friendly.
Right.
But I think his heart is in the right place, and he's definitely a really hard worker. And I think he also expects a lot of his workers.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And that's I don't know. Sometimes Marion and I have discussions, or even all three of us, about being ownerly.
Right.
I don't know if she's brought that term up. But,
no, I haven't heard it. No.
I don't think she feels that I'm ownerly enough.
Okay.
That maybe if I rode through, the warehouse in a bicycle in a, I think my silly hat that year might have been a moose hat.
Uh-huh.
And just the way that that I dress, comport myself, etc., might give some people a feeling that it's a looser ship than it really is.
Right.
And
well, it can, but in the end, I don't know that people care about those things. Are we discussing, or am I interviewing you? I don't know.
Yeah, we could probably turn it off at this point, unless you think we're.
No, I think.